champions Bill Fonzie Alfonso giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nicole Matano, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
And welcome to episode number 170 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes on this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action from February 26th, 2003. My name is Aria, and joining me, as always, is the VJ to my will. It's Cindy. Cindy, how the fuck are you today?
So we're referencing that already.
Yeah, this is welcome back to the shit show that is TNA. Welcome back to yeah, I swear to God, I try every fucking week. I really do try to give this stupid show a chance. This is seriously shit. It's shit, it's shit, it's shit. And it's I don't know when the fuck it's gonna get better, but it ain't fucking this week that it's gonna get better.
We start to see some glimmers of hope.
The number one feud in the company, the match that they're pushing more than anything else, is Jeff Jarrett versus Vince Russo. A, I'm pretty sure that match never happens. And B, even if it does, who gives a flying fuck? And it's like, if it's not going to happen, they're wasting an absurd amount of time, effort, energy, and resources building up to a match that's never going to happen. And if it does happen, no one gives a fuck. Because they spent, we talked about this last week. They talked about how this week, um, they said it was going to be Vader, Dusty Rhodes versus the Harris's and Vince Russo without saying as much. Because they kept playing that promo part where Dusty said to bring Russo to the ring. Do you think a single person bought this show because they thought, based on the way it was phrased, that Russo was going to wrestle in the main event tonight?
I have no idea what drives people to buy this pay-per-view.
There's nothing. There's nothing on this fucking show. Like, and I made the compare. Like, what would you even buy this show for at this fucking point? You know, you know, for the most part, the wrestling's good. But guess what? If you want to pay to watch good wrestling, Ring of Honor, buy the DVDs for $20. You're going to get a lot better matches up and down the card than pretty much anything you see on any of these shows.
And with some of the same guys.
Yeah. It's like we were already teasing turning this into 1997 WWF when we split the entire company into three groups. Now we're adding an ECW group. We're adding the washed up second generation group. Isn't there another group that we're starting this week too? I, I, we'll get to fucking all of it, but
I don't
we're
think it's
splitting.
really a group. It's more like hired mercenaries. But go ahead.
Yeah, we're splitting up the entire company into gangs because it's 1997 WWF, and we're gonna have more promos talking about how the big stars are in the WWF later on tonight. Um, and how, Vince Russo has to bring them over here to this company because this company doesn't have stars. So they got to bring them over from WWE. And, But at the end of the day, the big star, the number one star, is fucking Vince Russo. And let me get this out of the way because I forgot to make a note of this. But at one point during the show, Tanay and West talk about how, oh, we had to turn away 150 people. That sounds great, except like 100 people get in for free.
I wrote that down. That's
Yeah.
part of my notes. I'm trying to
It-
remember where they talked about it. Oh yeah. The I think it was the fourth or fifth match.
it doesn't
No,
matter, but it's like
it was the fifth match. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. But I have
it's
the
like
best counter.
it's like congratulations, you got 1,000 people to show up to watch free wrestling. Great. Great. And the only people who paid were the people who are, marks for sitting in front of the camera all night. It's literally the only people who pay are those people in those first few rows in front of the camera holding up the stupid signs. But anyway, so what else is going on in the world of wrestling as it pertains to TNA? Well, they wanted to use Psychosis in this show to wrestle Jerry Lynn, but he has paperwork issues. Easy for me to say. Paperwork issues. But they hope to use him in the future. Jimmy Yang was supposed to wrestle Raven, but he refused to sign a one-night contract because it included some kind of a non-compete clause. So he was sent home and is not expected to be back, and he isn't. And AMW versus Triple X was originally scheduled for this show, but Low Key's in Japan, and Christopher Daniels is doing an OVW tryout. So,
Oops.
yeah, just in case you're curious. And yeah. So episode number 34, we still have 76 of these to go. Yippee. X Division champion Kid Cash with Trinity versus Jason Cross. Just a reminder, 2 weeks ago, Jerry Lynn won a number one contenders match. Last week, Paul London got the title shot because Lynn wanted to do a three-way with the SAT. We were promised that Lynn would get his match at a, quote, a future date. Well, we're still waiting for it. And the last time we saw Jason Cross was when he broke his hand in the match with David Young, where he lost. So for the second straight week, the X Division title match, the challenger is somebody who their last appearance on this show was them losing. Um, so this this goes back to the theory that it's better to open up the show with a good match than a shitty promo, or a shitty match for that matter. And sure enough, they went out and they had a good match. They went out and had a
They did.
good opening match of the pay-per-view. They had about 8 or 9 minutes, and it was good. There were rough spots. There was annoying spots, like when Cash has been doing that stupid Sabu spot where I throw the chair at their face. Um, and they try to say he did it out of nowhere, except the fact that Cash threw it across, Cross caught it, threw it back at Cash, who caught it, and threw it back at Cross. And that's when they announced that he did that from out of nowhere. Um, Anywho, Cross misses the crossfire, and Cash pins him with a double springboard hurricanrana and a tornado DDT. Will Russo ever put two and two together that people want to watch good wrestling matches on their wrestling show? I don't think so either. 6.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was a little bit better than that. I can understand the niceness. I mean, Jason Cross was only wrestling for what, a year and a half at this point? And the most of the experience that he's been was what, locally and on. He's appeared a couple of times, been tearing up on Explosion, but hasn't done much on the main show. But I thought this was a good match, and it's kind of weird because during this match, Tanay and West brought up the length of reigns for the X Division, how there's so much parity that nobody's had it for longer than a couple of months. the person with the longest reign at this time was Sonny Siaki, who had it for 2 months.
Yep.
And that's kind of foreshadowing about what we're going to happen down the road.
But the only reason why, like, is the tag titles have changed hands 10 times, and I don't think that may not even be that much of an exaggeration to say 10 times either. Um, but like the only reason the world title hasn't changed that many times because Jarrett refuses to let anybody beat him for the belt. So, you know, like, well, let me see here. What were the tag title ones? It was AJ and Jerry Lynn, who then forfeited the belts. AMW got them. They lost them to the New Church, who lost them to AMW, who lost them to Triple X, who got stripped of them. So we've had six different tag title reigns. The X Division title was AJ to Low Key to Jerry Lynn, back to AJ to Six Pac. Did AJ beat Six Pac again?
AJ won it back.
Okay, yeah, AJ won it back. He lost it. To somebody who lost it
Lynn.
to Sonny Siaki. Yeah, he did. He lost it to Lynn, lost it to Sonny Siaki, who lost it to Kid Cash.
And
All
I think the
right,
reason
so
why Kid Cash got it is because he was smart
Amazing
enough
Reds
to
in
have,
Japan.
and also Trinity.
Yeah. Well, he basically got Amazing Red spots, and you know, but to the back where TNA, which holds one show a week, it airs Wednesday nights from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Um, Jeff Jarrett showed up 14 minutes late for the show. And Goldilocks tried interviewing him and he blew her off. What was the point of this? So there are two long as fuck Vince Russo segments on this show. They both suck, and I'm not going to talk about them. Cindy, take it away.
All right. And you can chime in. Or not. Anyway, so after that Goldie segment of nothingness, which is going to be a trend, or has been a trend for the past 8 months, Vince Russo comes out wearing the natural Dustin Rhodes jacket. He says that the theme for tonight's show is family and friends. He says that after last night's show, Russo went to Jarrett's house. They had a chat. They worked everything out. They hashed everything out. And Jarrett is joining Sports Entertainment Extreme. He says now that he's got the world champion, he puts out the call to anybody who wants to join Sex. And the wheels start to fall off. Well, they've already fallen off and they're on fire, but here comes a fire extinguisher. AJ Styles comes out and says that Jarrett was right. Russo is a cocky, arrogant Yankee bastard. However, he says Russo was right that Jarrett has a black card. He'd screw over his own mother to keep it. I think we actually saw that a few weeks ago on this show. Or we'll see it in a few months' time. Who knows? He says that sex is all about philosophy, and if you want to be a Russo, you got to subscribe to the philosophy. And AJ was like, you know what? Teach me how to do that black heart, and I'll do it. Pen, paper. Raven comes out and quotes Voltaire. Self-delusion is the key to happiness. I mean, I think that's a quote that pretty much sums up a lot of TNA right now, huh? I think
No
Aria
comment.
went. Okay.
I'm here. I'm just.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, Raven talks about how AJ isn't fit enough. He says, I should be fighting Jeff Jarrett, and that he wouldn't last against somebody like the Sandman, and goads AJ into fighting the Sandman. AJ's like, zip it, and says that he wouldn't last a he wouldn't last against an X Division wrestler. You know, no chairs, no anything like that. Heads up. Russo's like, God, stop with the arguing. AJ will wrestle Sandman, and Raven will wrestle an X Division competitor. That was supposed to be Jimmy Yang earlier, and that didn't happen. MW comes out, says they aren't joining Sex, but will kick Vince Russo's ass. They charge the ring. Russo and AJ bail, and they go after Raven. And now we have a return. After a few months away, the Hot Shots are back. They have the shirts. They've joined Sex. And in a running theme I didn't expect in this episode, Don West points out that the locker room is way too crowded. There are too many egos. Who knew that the voice of wisdom for this storyline is Don West?
To the back, where Goldilocks is
Thank you.
talking to Dusty Rhodes and Vader, who are both really fat, and Dusty threatened to shoot Vince Russo. It's now time, 30 minutes into the show, and it's time for our second match. The New Church with Jim Mitchell versus Simon Diamond and Johnny Swinger. Simon and Swinger here for the first time since July, when we needed to make the tag team division better, so we brought them in for one day. And they used the theme that becomes Chris Sabin's future music. I forget who else has used that music, but I know they aren't the first.
There's got to be like some list online about who used whose music. Like, there's, the Kurt Angle's theme. I mean, it was first the Patriots music, then Sergeant Slaughter used it. And there's got to be other people who've used that music before him. And this is quite common with TNA themes. Like, there's a Abyss's theme that we've seen with Monty Brown and a few others. Like, didn't Paul London come out to Chris Sabin's theme?
Probably.
Or did he come out to Abyss's theme?
Honestly, at this point, I can't even remember.
But this is an ECW reunion match, by the way.
The fans, by the way, were chanting evil, which just reminded me that it could be worse, although I don't know at this point if it'd be better or worse if instead of this we were reviewing House of Torture matches every week. I think both would drive me up a wall just as quickly.
What are House of Torture matches? This is new to me.
It's a group in New Japan, and their matches all suck, and it's just nonstop bullshit during every one of their matches. And one of the people in the match is evil in the House of Torture. And yes.
Isn't he with a bunny lady or something?
Who?
Never mind. I'm thinking of somebody else.
Okay.
By the way, full disclosure, when it comes to watching, current wrestling, I am lapsed right now, mainly because I have no time to watch full shows unless it's a pay-per-view with friends. So That's my excuse. So I am.
Welcome to the show.
I do try to catch up, but yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Yep.
So Don West spends the early part of the match talking about Brian Lee and Slash don't follow anyone. I wonder what Jim Mitchell has to say about that. That spot.
He was talking about how the New Church don't follow anyone. They're not part of traditional wrestling like NWA. They're not part of Sports Entertainment Extreme. They're their own group.
So that spot in tag team matches where a team is on opposite sides in the corners and will send their opponents into each other? Well, Simon and Swinger missed each other. They missed. They ran towards each other, never slowed down, and missed each other. Slash made the hot tag, and referee Andrew Thomas somehow missed it. He wasn't being distracted or anything. He just wasn't watching, and for the first time and perhaps only time in TNA history, the referee enforced the rules. Not that it mattered, because seconds later, Slash pinned Swinger with a neck breaker, the Slash and Burn. Now, Simon and Swinger are not the most exciting team in the world, but it beats bringing in another pair of green Nashville guys. New Church wins 4.0 out of 10.
That's exactly what I had it, because I thought the match was weird. I mean, Diamond and Swinger, they're good size, but you have Slash and Brian Lee, and like they were working behind this entire match. And
because they're the baby faces.
Which was weird. I mean, who would have thought that the new church, the evil group, would be the face group? I think they're more like tweener, but because you can plug them against anybody and make it work. But that's probably to the talent of Jim Mitchell. I just thought it was weird. 4 out of 10. So we're in agreement there. Now Goldie talks to Jarrett. He says that he's buttering up Russo. He says they've been friends for 12 years, puts over Russo and everything. And he takes off his jacket and reveals he's wearing a sex shirt and will show the family reunion and what happened later tonight on tape. There was 10 seconds of stunned silence from Tenay and West. Tenay has a conniption about this. Like, God damn that Jeff Jarrett and all that stuff. And West is like, calm down. Practice what you preach, what you've been telling me all this time. Let's see how it plays out. And we can't believe anything that Vince Russo's involved with. Don West, voice of reason. How we got to this point, we'll never know. I'm going to let you take this one because I tuned out because it's Mike Tenay interviewing Glenn Gilberti and Mike Sanders about what they do in sex.
So do you remember when, about a month ago, when Mike Tenay had that sit-down interview with Vince Russo that Vince Russo demanded to have because he wanted to show up Mike Tenay and Mike Tenay made him look like an idiot?
Yeah.
Well, on those legendary drives to and from Atlanta to Nashville that Russo and his gang does, Gilberti begged for the chance to get that shot, and 2-on-1, they got schooled even more by Mike Tenay. It's the exact same fucking segment as it was a month ago, except now it's with Disco Inferno and Mike Sanders. Again, Disco Inferno is going to be getting a world title match in like 3 months that we're going to watch the build to. And that's what cracked me the first time I tried watching all these fucking shows. So back to the front with America's Most Wanted versus the Hot Shots, who have Sanders and Gilberti in their corner. The longest rivalry in TNA history, and every time it happens 2 weeks at a time. Back in July, the Hot Shots beat the shit out of AMW backstage, so AMW beat them in a match. Then in November, the Hot Shots beat AMW by countout when AMW were distracted by the new church. AMW then left the Hot Shots lying, and we hadn't seen them since. Tenay says that Cassidy and Chase are Sex's second tag team, and I'm already counting 4, and that's only if you count Triple X as one team and not 3 tag teams in one. But you have Triple X, the Harrises, Gilberti and Sanders, and now the Hot Shots.
Yeah,
That's
I was about
4
to say
teams.
something. Yeah.
AMW was so pissed that this team won't leave them the fuck alone that James Storm pretty much patiently waited for a tag while his best friend got double teamed. The finish saw the referee decide to enforce the rules and try to get Cassidy to leave the ring while Chase was being covered. Gilberti tried to interfere, but that was to no avail, and Storm pinned Chase Stevens with an 8-second ride. Let's just go ahead and call this a nice, basic Nashville tag match. However, this match, in my opinion, shows the improvement of Harrison Storm since July and the lack of improvement for the Hotshots in that same period. 4.0 out of 10.
I thought it was a little bit better. I gave it a 5. And I know we've seen this numerous times, but we know what plays out. Hotshots have control but lose to AMW and they lose. Or Hotshots cheat to win. It's one of those two. There's no middle ground. And it leads up to this next segment because Goldie's backstage in the sex locker room with Sonny Siaki.
But before you even get that far, so the Hotshots, Chase Stevens and Cassidy O'Reilly. Chase Stevens will go on to form another insanely bland tag team as the Naturals in a year or so. And Cassidy O'Reilly does approximately nothing, which just shows you that how bad do you have to be the member of the Hotshots that they don't put in the Naturals.
I guess he wasn't proud and protruding enough to be part of the Naturals. Yes, I'm referencing that segment.
Mm-hmm.
And now Sonny Siaki, and I thought about bringing back the counter, but instead of the Sonny Siaki counter, it's Ace in the Hole. But I've been working mandatory overtime, long hours, and I couldn't be bothered.
So here was the segment. Sonny Siaki's in the SEX locker room. There's no Vince Russo, and nobody's listening to Siaki. That's it. Raven versus Julio De Niro in his debut because I guess he just happened to be backstage looking for work when Jimmy Yang said no to the one-day contract. Now, this is an X Division match, which means that if Raven loses, he'll probably get an X Division title match next week. Julio missed a moonsault. I know that ever noticed that when someone is going to miss a moonsault, they jump so far back that the guy that's supposed to move doesn't even really need to move. Julio went to give Raven some move. I don't know what it was supposed to be, and I don't think Julio knew either. It was either a spine buster or the lowdown, but Julio's legs went completely different directions, and I'm shocked he didn't fuck something up. The referee got bumped. Julio got a visual pin off something. Julio got a visual pin off someone being built for a world title match, because again, Raven is allegedly being built for a world title match, and I don't know how this fucking match pops a buy rate at this point because they are fucking this up so much. Down scurried AJ Styles, who knocks Julio off the top rope, and Raven pinned him with the even flow DDT. And with the loss, I'm sure this means Julio will challenge Kid Cash next week for the X Division title. 2.5 out of 10.
Well, I could look that up and see if. All right, never mind. We'll find out next week. I don't think it's Julio De Niro. I gave it a 3 out of 10. I thought it was fine. I mean, fine-ish.
It would be the worst. It would be the worst match on the show, but well, it gets worse.
It will, but can I bring you this match's Don West voice of reason moment?
Sure, why the hell not?
During the match, Don West says, I could see Raven more in the X Division than AJ in a hardcore match. I guess going back to how Raven can wrestle and how Sandman can't or won't, and AJ being too young to understand hardcore or knowing better than to not let it be his entire thing. Don West, voice of reason.
Backstage, Goldilocks interviewed Conan and asked if he had any better plans with Jerry Lynn. Oh, this fucking segment. So, again, A, these are fucking pre-taped, and B, you can re-record it, when you do a shitty promo, but it's TNA, so why would you do that? The first thing in this promo Conan does is tells Goldie to give him a blowjob. I am not making that up. Conan said he's bringing in someone from Mexico and brings in Juventud Guerrera and asks Goldie if she knows who he is. And she answered honestly, that being no. Thank God we have announcers, we have backstage interviewers on the show who know so little about wrestling, they don't know the guy that, was a pretty big deal until about a year and a half, 2 years earlier. Hoovy, by the way, slapped her ass on the way out. That will not be the first or the last time that a woman has her ass grabbed on this show. And from here we go to Jerry Lynn versus Juventud Guerrera with Conan. Hoovy, being the great heel he is, gets the fans to cheer for him. Tenay brings up that great period of time when Russo put Hoovy in the broadcast booth with Tenay to do commentary on Thunder. Juventud, who hadn't been on national TV since he left WCW, decided to do the stupidest thing he could think of. No, he didn't do acid, take off all his clothes, and go batshit crazy in a hotel room. He attempted a springboard 450 crossbody block to the outside, where his ass landed on Jerry Lynn's head. And to be honest, I thought it was supposed to be Lynn reversing that into a power bomb, but Lynn was the one that sold it. Reversals were reversed into more reversals. The match was good, wasn't as good as you think it might be. Tenay and West tried to put it over like an instant classic, which it wasn't. And Lynn pinned him with a cradle while his own shoulders were down, but nobody noticed or cared. After the match, Conan got up in Hoovy's face, so Hoovy shoved Conan, and before anything else could come of it, they just left. 7.0 out of 10.
I gave it an 8 out of 10. I thought this was a great match. And I like the chemistry. I like the false finishes. It kind of reminded me of a really good cruiserweight match that you would get on WCW Nitro or Clash the Champions. I also want to bring up the standing room only comment we talked about earlier. Tenay mentioned that they had to turn away people, around 150 people, and he said it was rain, it was freezing rain, snow, it was bitter cold. That's probably the real reason you got so many people to watch that free wrestling show. They wanted to get out of the elements and be somewhere warm. Sure, body heat, and it's not really warm, but it's warm. And it's a warm place, and you have to see some good matches at least. Sadly, the rest of the show isn't great, but it's something.
Don't get too used to seeing Juventud Guerrera.
He is in and out so many times over the next 2 years.
All right. So more Goldilocks and more Sonny Siaki. Apparently Vince Russo left. Mortimer Plumtree walked in and Siaki pushed him off screen. What the hell was the point of this?
I have no idea.
Are we supposed to believe that Mortimer Plumtree knew that Jeff Jarrett was swerving Vince Russo and he was trying to warn Sonny Siaki or some shit?
Mortimer Plumtree, he wasn't. Doesn't he do like behind the scenes stuff in TNA at this time?
We're not supposed to know that.
Oh, right. What the hell is that about?
He's just some person who's now on the show for no reason at all.
You want to watch some wrestle
A-
crap?
AJ Styles versus the Sandman in a hardcore match. I wrote that Sandman may have been drunk during this match. I don't think there's a may about this one.
Nope.
Sandman wandered around the ringside before the match. He stopped at one of the dancers' cages and began making out with her and grabbing her ass. So that's the second woman whose ass got grabbed on this show. And for the record, I don't think anybody whose ass is grabbed on this show was aware that it's coming. He handed a fan a beer and she just dropped it on the ground, which I marked out for. And the match begins with drunken chain wrestling. Yes, chain wrestling by the Sandman while he was drunk. That shockingly did not last too long, as instead Sandman went and got a table, which was up by the entryway, and they dragged it down to ringside. Why couldn't they just leave the damn table under the ring? I get it's a trope, but it's better than having to go backstage to grab a table to bring back out. AJ placed Sandman on the table, goes for a dive, but Sandman rolls out of the way and AJ crashes through said table. Finish saw Sandman go for the Heineken Rana, but Raven ran in after a ref bump in a hardcore match. He thwacked Sandman with a chair, and AJ won with a middle rope Styles clash. As I mentioned a month ago when AJ had a different stupid match, this is being done to toughen AJ up. Keep in mind that that does not mean the match is any good, just that there is a stupid reason for these stupid matches that AJ Styles is being put in. 3.0 out of 10.
That's exactly what I gave it, 3.0 out of 10. I mean, it was really subpar. I mean, at least we get the storyline aspect of, okay, AJ helped Raven out. So Raven was like, fine, I'll pay back the favor and does that to Sandman. At least the middle rope Styles Clash was kind of cool. And now,
So,
probably the second best segment of the whole show, we get the return of Don West hype time.
yes, he plugs next week's show and he says that Kid Cash will defend the X Division title, but he doesn't know who he's going to defend it against. And the reason for that is because it's supposed to be the Amazing Red, but they couldn't get in touch with him to confirm that he'll be back from Japan. So they didn't want to announce it. So I guess good for them for not potentially false advertising. And also, Raven will wrestle Sandman in, and I quote, an Orange of Clock, I'm sorry, a House of Clockwork Orange match because they came up with a name so stupidly complicated that the announcers couldn't remember it. And thankfully, Raven remembered it because Raven cut a promo from his perch calling it a Raven's Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. And the stipulation of this match, now, in my opinion, it if they were in a bigger building than the asylum, it would have been in a scaffold match. But they're not. They're in the asylum, which the roof is very fucking low, so you couldn't do a scaffold match. So instead, you have to take your opponent over to where Raven sits on the stairs and throw them off through a table. So nice, fun, dangerous bump in front of the maybe 5,000 people who will buy this show next week. By the way, why the hell does everyone want to wrestle Sandman? Sandman has not won a match on this show at all, and I'm fairly confident he never does.
I think it's because Raven wants to just end the Sandman.
Yeah, that feud was fun and entertaining in 1995 in another company with a booker who knew what the hell he was doing. We're in 2003 with a booker who has no fucking idea. I'm shocked when he wakes up in the morning, he's able to put both feet on the ground.
Bro, I mean, one morning I might do that, but bro, I'm actually gonna go on a unicycle, bro.
Eh, Just swerve. He's gonna get out of bed, walking on his hands. So then all of this built up to the best match they could put together as a main event. Dusty Rhodes and Vader versus Ron and Don Harris, the Harrises, with Sonny Siaki and Desire in their corner. Tenay says that not often do the Harrises face people bigger than them, and while Vader and Dusty are both shorter, they both outweigh the Harrises by at least 100 to 150 pounds each. The match begins, and for some strange, odd, unknown, unexplained, I doubt will ever be explained reason, Ron Killings, who hasn't been on the show in like a month, was standing on the steps in the crowd.
Yeah.
It was shown briefly. They mentioned it. He was never shown or talked about again.
They mentioned it was part of the interrogators. It was like fallout from that interrogator segment where the NWA side of TNA thought that they've been betrayed by Truth, that he had joined Sports Entertainment Extreme. So this is kind of like a Sting thing, I guess, but not
Yes.
really.
By the way, they mentioned that Dusty's son, Cody Runnels, just won an amateur wrestling title after going undefeated all season. Whatever happened to that kid?
I don't
Um,
know. Maybe he's got some adrenaline in his soul. That's why he won
that
all those matches.
Dusty somehow gets busted open. I would only be more surprised if Ric Flair had begun spontaneously bleeding wherever he was that night.
Can we
Uh,
mention? Can I mention something about that?
no. I mean, yes.
I mean, oh, over the past couple of years, Moxley has been given a whole bunch of shit for bleeding in usually every match that he's in.
Uh-huh.
I mean, how come Dusty doesn't get as much shit as Moxley does when he's done it since, we'll say, 2000, after that bunkhouse match with Steve Corino?
He was getting shit for bleeding all the time. But it's also Al Gore hadn't invented the internet yet in the 1980s and the 1970s. So no one sat around talking about it.
Right. All right.
So Dusty got punched in the head, which inspired him to start dancing. I gotta say, I've never done that myself, but keep in mind I have been in a fist fight since 1997. Dusty makes a tag to Vader while Vader was already in the ring. Somehow that was allowed. Sonny Siaki rolled into the ring and got elbowed in the head for the disqualification. The disqualification against the Harrises, who, by the way, had pretty much walked off, you know, and so Siaki had to run into the ring. Maybe he missed his cue, maybe he didn't. Who fucking knows? But either way, Sonny Siaki ran into the ring, got elbowed in the head, which disqualified the Harrises. Maybe if he would have hit Dusty, it would have disqualified Dusty and Vader. Who knows? Um, the thing with this match, if anybody bought this pay-per-view to watch this match, and I doubt anybody fucking did, but if anybody did, they got exactly what they wanted by this match. They got a nostalgia act, and that doesn't make it good. And Vader is going to be one and done. And the next time we see Vader in TNA is in 2015 when he has a random one-off match with Bram, of all people, on Impact.
Which leads to another one-off with Matt Morgan.
0.5 out of 10. Because,
I gave it a 1 out of 10 because of Vader.
So after the match, Vader gave Sonny Siaki the Vader bomb. Desire ran in and became the third woman on this show to have her ass grabbed, as Dusty rubbed her ass for hitting her in the ass with the belt. Nikita Koloff then showed up because we couldn't just let the Nikita Koloff portion of this angle just die and nobody bring it up. But Nikita Koloff shows up in a suit and winter hat. He rolls into the ring, turned Dusty around, stared at him, and then Dusty gave him an elbow. And I'm hoping that this is the fucking end of Nikita Koloff.
Spoiler alert, no, it's not.
For fuck's sake. So we go to the back, where the Sandman is now having beers with Simon Diamond and Johnny Swinger, and they are arguing about how Raven didn't stay in ECW while the paychecks were bouncing. This is what we're arguing about on TV in 2003. For fuck's sake. So we are now apparently starting an ECW stable. And to which I wrote, how many stables do we need in this fucking company?
Until the company is stable itself.
And by the way, here's a funny story about, not people not getting paid. Whether or not it's true, because, it's the Sandman and he was probably drunk while he did it. He did a shoot interview in like 2007 for RF Video, and he talked about how WCW paid him till the end of his contract for like another year after he left WCW. And so he was getting paid while working for ECW and usually not getting paid from them. So for everyone in the company, by the way, it's probably Raven got that deal too, because if you recall, Raven wasn't allowed to go to WWE for like a year after he left WCW. So he was probably getting paid on his Time Warner deal for a year until that ran out. And so Sandman was getting paid the 75,000 or whatever his contract was, while everyone else in the company wasn't making a penny. And then we get the final segment of the show. I'm not even going to fucking talk about it. Cindy, go ahead.
All right, so, okay. Russo comes out. He's got a cheap-ass banner saying, "Welcome home, Jeff," with a guitar and what looks like to be a bottle of Martinelli's. And for those who don't know what Martinelli's is, it's essentially sparkling cider, because I think they're too cheap to buy an actual bottle of champagne. He announces it's time to introduce the newest member of Sports Entertainment Extreme, Jeff Jarrett. When he does that, Russo's kids show up on tape. It plays. They say that we miss having you as a dad. This, you've hardly ever been around. You moved us. We were living in Connecticut. You moved us to Georgia when you started working for WCW. And now you started working for Sports Entertainment Extreme, TNA, and it's just consumed your entire life. And I want my dad back. There are certain parts of wrestling where I just immediately tune out. And it makes me like, I don't want to watch this. And one of those moments, one of those tropes is bringing somebody in, usually children, for no reason whatsoever. Um, I'll use an example that is vivid in my mind. And this is the second time Russo's done this. The first time that I remember was it was a random Nitro, and Kevin Nash brought his little cousin and showing him around. And he mainly stayed backstage. In a shoot interview, Kevin Nash said that Kimberly hung out with him playing cards, was acting all motherly to him because I think she wanted to be a mom and never had kids with DDP. And at the end of the show, the new blood, Goldberg, Jarrett beat down Kevin Nash, and Russo essentially held Jarrett, held Kevin Nash's cousin. Was like, "This is your broken ass dad, uncle or something," and the kid was crying. Like, I, what's the point? I mean, what are you trying to convey? That couldn't be done by having him just in the crowd, seeing his dad get beat up, his uncle get beat up, and just crying that way, and not having to bring him into the ring. Anyway, after the promo tape airs, Russo runs down his own kid. I was the cool dad. I let you watch Stern play poker after school and verbally cut down your own principal when you got into trouble. So Jarrett comes out and says Russo years ago would have given off the shirt off his back to help his kids. And about the reunion with Jarrett's family, he was met with a shotgun and he ran. I like to mention there's no truth to the fact that that shotgun was held by Taylor Swift.
Well, since it was his wife and he wasn't married to Taylor Swift, I would say probably not.
Well, Taylor Swift was the babysitter to Jarrett's kids.
Yes, but he said it was his wife that did it.
All right. So Jarrett goes after Russo, but out comes David Flair and Brian Lawler, who we haven't seen since that fake heart attack angle when he was grabbing Priscilla's ass. So he returns, and to mass indifference by the crowd, we get Eric Watts. Jarrett tries to fight back, but Eric Watts choke slams Jarrett through a table. He says, and I quote, "You will regret what you've done to us." Regret! Mic drop. Show ends. Thank fucking God that segment's over.
Oh yeah, the other thing you forgot, Russo said he was going to go home and beat the shit out of his children. Doesn't that sound fun? Doesn't that sound like something you want to hear talk about on your wrestling program?
Nope.
So fuck this fucking company in the fucking ass. Who's booking this shit? Oh yeah. So match quality 3.93, which conveniently enough is almost exactly what overall enjoyment was, because the only part of this show that anybody could possibly enjoy were the actual wrestling matches. So overall enjoyment 4.0. Future build 0. Nobody wants to fucking watch Jarrett versus Russo. Nobody. Nobody. Giving us an overall rating of 2.64. 7 thumbs down this week.
-5 stars! Or something like that. The matches were good. Well, most of them were. 2 of them were. But everything surrounded it sucked. I already talked about how bringing kids in to, who don't know any better into something like this turns me off. And it's what turned me off. The Eddie and Ray feud from 2005?
Yes.
The
And it's
Dominic thing
just as
turned me off
stupid
of
then.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm. Thank God I worked mandatory overtime, otherwise, I'd have more thoughts. Overall quality and all that stuff, 3 out of 10. Whatever.
So another crap episode of TNA to just remind us that somehow these shows allegedly get good. I have a hard time believing that is possible at this point. And I'm aware that, all the people are headed in. D'Lo Brown is headed in. He does a great job. And fucking CM Punk is going to be here, part of, Raven's group. And eventually, all of these shit bags are going to be gone. You know who's not going to be gone? Russo. And Russo's fucking here until October when they tease bringing in Hogan. So, yeah, we still have 8 more months of this shit to look forward to. Quote unquote, look forward to. This is how I spend the rest of my 40th year is watching garbage, more or less. And by the way, you want to know the worst thing coming up, Cindy?
No, what?
I'm going to WrestleMania in April, which means at one point you and I are going to have to record 2 of these at one week just to get ahead.
We're gonna have to do that in May because I'm going on vacation in June.
I'm gonna throw something. I'm gonna when I'm fucking flying to Vegas, I'm gonna bring my fucking corkscrew and drop it out of the airplane window as we're flying over Indiana. Point out in hopes that it lands on his fucking head. And yes, I'm
Russo lives
aware
in
of
Indiana.
to the best of my knowledge. But yeah, I'm aware of the 8,000 issues involved with bringing a corkscrew onto a plane and then dropping it off out onto someone's head outside the plane. Well, that's going to do it for this shit show. And well, this isn't a shit show. That's going to do it for the shit show known as TNA. And that's going to do it for one more week of this show. And again, there's like 76 episodes to go. 1 second. Here's the problem. Like, it doesn't seem like there's a exact. You would think it's pretty fucking easy to find out what the exact number of these pay-per-views are, but you end up with a lot of um, people not counting it right because people will count the best of shows. Some people don't count the best of shows, but allegedly pay-per-view number 110 is September 8th, 2004, with the Jeff Jarrett Jeff Hardy match. Because, well, yeah, by the way, spoiler alert, uh, Jeff Jarrett still can't do the job then either. So there is that. So we're somewhere in the range of 76 of these fucking things to go. So that's gonna do it for this week. And at this point, we'll talk again in 7 days.
I'm off to the Pink Pony Club.